This is Mike Gormley and the Mike Gormley Show. We were just listening to You Had It Coming from the great production Chicago. Maureen, you worked on that.
Did it was a great project. Rob Marshall is such an incredible director. I don't know if you see that so much of the movement in the film, in the bodies, there's very little camera work. It's all kind of choreographed in the scene, which was very, very exciting. And I was telling you at one point about it, He Had It Coming, which was such a popular song and production from the film. And when we were doing it, adapting a Broadway show to a theatrical show, it's a different experience. So Ken was very much saying, keep it simple. Whenever we made it too big, it loses some of its grit if you get too, too careful, too elaborate with it. And we had two different arrangements come back and it just wasn't hitting. And I said, it really needs to have that kind of seductive macabre. The thing about Chicago is they're all murderers and you just love them anyway. And you just, it doesn't matter. You're just seduced by them. And so it needs to have the macabre. And of course, the composer that has done that very, very well is Danny Elfman. So once everyone agreed to that pitch, it just pulled itself together. And then we got Danny to do the score and just all that seductive elements come in. And see, that's what's so wonderful about working in music as a design element. There's so many different ways. It's so malleable. It's the ways that can communicate something that the audience just can get drawn into, and you have them. And that's what I love about working with music design in this way. It's just so rewarding.
It's very interesting. Long time ago, I was invited to a screening of a film that went on to do pretty well. And in the screening was a certain score. And it didn't really work. And 3 or 4 months later, I went to a screening of the exact same film with a different score.
Yeah.
But it was all different. It was all, the feeling was different. I mean, it's amazing what the music will do. Just score music as well as songs. I mean,
it's always fun to be brought into a project. I was brought into Uptown Girls, which was initially an R-rated movie. And it had Dakota Fanning as a young girl. And they were like, we've got to make this a PG-13. And I just
and the music can make that happen. The music can make that big a difference from our.
Not a big difference. Well, they cut some scenes out, but it was also, instead of There She Goes, it's Charmed Life. It's like, it's original songs. It's everything's kind of light and up, and it wasn't the direction the director initially wanted to go, but it actually made the film very successful. And I've done that on a couple of different projects. If they only wanted to use existing music, I'm like, well, this is a film about Sisters on Track on Netflix. They're running races year after year after year to go to the Olympics. You have to have score. We have to have a hero theme. Otherwise, we're not going to be carried through. And it was a big revelation to the director. She never really thought about using an original theme that way. And
how many directors?
So it's fun. That's really, really fun part, the design part, when you can really make an impact like that.
How many directors know music and understand how it works in a film or I know you can't give me a number, but generally speaking, is that a common problem, or do most of them have some idea of what should go in the film, or whether it's the right or wrong idea, at least they're looking at it?
Well, Tony, I think you're the perfect one to answer that, Tony. What would you say?
I can't really quantify it because it's so, it's so different. It depends on, I think the more, experienced first of all, there's a big difference between film and TV when it comes to music. So on the feature side, the directors are much more involved in the conversation on music. In TV, it's the executive producers. It's not the directors. So I can only speak from my perspective of working in television, unless you have like a producer, director, showrunner type situation. Chances are it all depends on sort of like the experience level of that particular auteur.
Mm-hmm. That's
and a lot of people may understand their own music that they love,
right?
But they've written a character who's totally different. So it's like, unless it's on the page, I would say that's great if you want the girl who has unicorn t-shirts on and stuff to be listening to AC/DC, that's fine. But how do we justify it in the story? You know what I mean? As long as it's in the story, that, and I've had directors go like, oh, I have a story about a rock and roll girl. She has a band in LA. She's got to go into the country to take care of her sister who has, Asperger's or whatever. And she has
Mhm.
posters of Ricky Nelson all over the place. And I'm thinking it's a sax score. This is the director, a saxophone. I'm like, yeah, I got to tell you, your script is screaming guitar, 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 guitar. So sometimes it's just kind of them getting out of their own way,
Right.
Yeah. Do they ever change a character or a scene or whatever because the music is what they want and therefore they'll, yeah, on your advice, they may change it to that degree?
Probably, I mean, on the TV side, no, because by the time they've shot it, the only thing they can change is the music.
Yeah. So you can't change it. It's the way
Right.
it goes. Yeah.
But you can have these conversations. Like I know I brought up The Bear or even The Bookie, which is all 70s music. And they talk about it like, man, do I have to listen to this 70s emo song again? And he's like, yes, you do, because it's my car and this is what I like to listen to. You know what I mean? Like they use it as character, they'll use it as banter. So as long as it's justified, it could be anything. And that's what's so fun about it.
Cool.
Yeah. Now what they could do is, again, I'm talking from a TV perspective. Let's say, to your sort of example, Mike, if, somebody wanted to change the character, if you went to, the network, because there's the production, there's the studio, and there's a network. So then if, let's say, the network watched the show and was like, you know what, this character is not hitting the right way, then maybe they'll do a recast and then reshoot the show and, have to, delay everything. So, that could happen if they felt that, in terms of overall storyline and, the direction of the show, that if it did need a reboot, then, that could happen. But it's highly unlikely to, go that far. Usually there's so much casting, testing with cast and everything like that before they get, their sort of chemistry tests and all that good stuff. So, chances of that happening are pretty low.
If somebody's going to send you a song, let's say, there are some rules to follow that I know about. One is you can send in the song as is, but you need an instrumental version to go with it, right? You want to hear that, and I don't know if that's just movies or TV or both, but there are certain rules to follow before you submit the song. Maybe are there only a couple or are there several? Can you go over that a little bit? Tony, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I think it all depends. I mean, chances are, yes, you should have an instrumental version just in case, because, when the music supervisor and the music editor are working on sort of placement of the song, you may need to have it duck under dialogue so that way you can hear, what is being said. So you might want to have it cut to, have the instrumental under the dialogue. So it's always very helpful. But there are a lot of other things that I think individual music supervisors will tell you, do they want a WAV file? Do they want to initially have an MP3 just to have a listen for the production team to hear to see if they like it? Some music editors and supervisors will cut a rough version to the picture so that way they can sort of see it beforehand to see if it works, and then ask for, if it sticks, then ask for the WAV file, because then that means that it's a higher quality version. So I mean, there are a whole bunch of other metadata on that, all that good stuff.
Yeah, the main thing is you want to make sure all the metadata is right. And we talked about AI. I think one of the first thing is going to get people paid through AI. So, you should have your metadata ready so it can be read and you can get paid. And also we can find you so many times if it's an out of body one-off of here's the MP3, no information, nothing on it. It's
Right.
like you can't reach out to them. So when you're in the studio, you want all those things kind of done, so this way, if it comes up, you have the answer. Sometimes these things get changed on the dubbing stage very quickly. So you need to get your legal taken care of. You need to have lots of versions. You just have to accept that there's not going to be a lot of time. Well, they can ask me for it, then I can go back in. The ship might have sailed by then. So that's why it's good to have all that kind of tightened up. And I prefer disco because I don't want to download anything until I listen to it, or I don't want to have to go individual tracks.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty much the industry standard, I think,
Yeah.
or at least it has become, especially among music supervisors. I know we also prefer to get stuff by disco as well.
It's another. I'm still trying to get to how some regular guy, regular woman can get to you folks. How can they?
Well, I think the same way they do in the record companies now. I mean, they're posting on YouTube, they have followings, they have all those numbers, all those things. I mean, if you see some of the newer artists that are getting signed, it's not that they've broken through on radio or even touring, it's their numbers. So
And-
that's gonna get the attention. But as I always said, something, being an influencer or having the numbers is great as long as the song works in the show.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think anyone's going to place anything because, oh, they have the numbers, you know, and you're burying it behind something because you can't really feature it. It doesn't, that's the tail wagging the dog. If it matches up perfectly, then it's a win-win.
And another thing is that you're going to need to know, and you touched on this earlier, Maureen, you need to know who owns the song, who you're going to go after to get the rights for the song. And it's not necessarily the person who wrote the song anymore. They've done a deal, or if they can control everything, if they control a master and they control the sync, basically publishing and so on, that's one person to talk to. I would assume that you prefer that, or is that not true?
Yeah, I prefer that they have legal representation and that they've already had music in something else so that there's no question that they are actually the legitimate owner. And I've even had individual writers go to the other band members and have them sign paper saying, we know he did this song on his own. It has nothing to do with us. We will not sue.
Okay. All right. We're gonna listen to some music on the way out here now. It's gonna be Paula Cole. She's doing a song called I Don't Want to Wait, which is something, Tony, you brought in or brought out to the world, correct?
Yeah, before I joined Sony, I worked on music supervision with John McCullough, and there was a little show called Dawson's Creek that we worked on, and Paula Cole was the main title theme for the show. There's, a whole long history, which, especially as a Canadian, Mike, you would appreciate. They originally wanted to have Alanis Morissette have the song, but she didn't want to do the main title theme, so we ended up getting the Paula Cole. And Jan Arden did the Canadian version of the show. And then when it went to syndication, it went back to the Paula Cole one. So that's kind of the story behind that.
Here's what we ended up hearing. I Don't Want to Wait with Paula Cole, and we'll come back on the other side and talk some more to Maureen Crowe and Tony Scudellari.
Scudellari.
Scudellari. Damn it, I've been trying so hard. All right, we'll be right back. I gotta go and cry.
That's the Long Island Scudellaris, pronounce it Scudellari.
Oh, okay.
So that's okay.
Right.
So you're okay with the Long Island Scudellaris.
All right. Thank you.